Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy.
Alright everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I'm your host as usual, and obviously welcome back to the show. Today's episode 236 of the show, and before we get started, just going to do a bit of house cleaning quick, because, well, you guys don't like to do it around here, it only makes sense to do it, so let's just get on with the house cleaning. I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening to today's episode. It does mean a lot to me, you guys constantly take time in your days to download episodes, to show these episodes, to constantly keep letting me know how you feel, whether you like my stupid voice or not, even though, let's be honest here right now, my voice is kind of shot. That's part of the reason why the episode is coming out on Friday, because, well, yeah, my voice has been kind of shot a little bit throughout this entire week, so we're managing here. I also do want to apologize a little bit for some background noise if you do hear anything, because I try to do some post-processing the best that I can, even though right now, the little homie over here is enjoying his little chew toy, so that's a whole different other story. But I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening. It does mean a lot to me, and at least being patient with me, because, yeah, let's be real, it's kind of rough here. Yeah, I forgive my little friend. He's a little bit trigger happy. But if you are a Patreon backer, thank you for supporting the show. And to be honest, just thank you guys for supporting in general. But let's get on with today's episode, because I genuinely do not know how much longer I have with my voice before I'm just completely like, bleh, you know. But what are we talking about today? Because in the polls, it was actually kind of unanimous about what you guys wanted me to talk about, because we had the options of talking about the new iPad baseline or the new iPad Pros that just came out, or we talk about this interesting thing called PC building in 2022. And I'm actually kind of surprised that I haven't talked about this, but I think it makes a lot of logical sense why it didn't, and why obviously we're talking about it now, because a lot of stuff is changing in the PC space right now. Primarily the sense graphic cards are not going down in price. We'll get to something a little bit later about that. But in terms of the crypto boom, crypto is pretty much dead at this point. And so prices are at least returning to a more stabilized or even a more affordable area. And this is why PC building in 2022 is going to be very interesting. Not only the fact of what we have available, so the RTX 30 series, the Radeon 6000 series, but also the current launch of the RTX 40 series and the soon-to-be RDNA 3 launch, or Radeon 7000 series. But we also have 13th gen Intel, which would be Raptor Lake, and we also have the 7000 series from Ryzen that are all available right now. And this is where PC building in 2022 becomes very interesting, because you have a lot of options here. And this is, in many ways, I say good. In many ways, this is what we'd like to see, because let's be real, in the past years, 2020 and 2021, PC building was very, very expensive for some ungodly reason, because of the fact that graphics cards were heavily inflated due to crypto mining, and just you weren't able to get them. So scalping prices just essentially made, let's just throw a rough estimate out there, a $1,500 build bumped it up to like over 25 to almost $3,000. And same thing goes for like bills that were normally like $3,000 are now way, way higher because of that. Even though now things are a lot more affordable, but there are some caveats. There's a lot of, it depends on factors here. It's kind of weird that I'm saying that, but this is something that I'm going to be emphasizing throughout the point of this episode is it depends. So let's keep that in mind. So let's talk about like the whole thing with what processors and things like that, because if I'm being honest, we're in a very interesting spot, especially when we talk about Raptor Lake and 7000 series Ryzen. The reason I say this is because of the fact that there's some pros and cons that you should be aware of going right into it. And one of the main cons I'd say one of the main cons with the new generation processors in comparison to say 12th gen and 5000 series Ryzen is the fact of one, power draw, the second, thermal performances, and the third, platform costs. This is where things get very interesting. It's because let's talk about Ryzen first. 7000 series Ryzen, yes, the videos are out there. We've seen the performance numbers. We know how these things performs in productivity and gaming performance. The main issue that people have with the AM5 platform is just how expensive it is to get into it. One, the processors are extremely expensive. Two, the motherboards are also extremely expensive. And three, the memory, just the reality of it, is also expensive because of the fact that it's relying heavily on DDR5. And they also want you to get very premium kits of DDR5 to truly get the best performance out of it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's expected, especially like, hey, if you have a processor that let's be real. This is nothing new with Ryzen. Ryzen has always been known to prefer very fast, more premium kits of RAM. Primarily would say, like in my rig, my Ryzen 5900 build. This one, I went with a kit of CO14 3600 RAM. That is to get the most optimal, like the maxed out performance on that chipset. This is the problem and some of the main issues that's going to happen with the AM5 platform or Ryzen 7000 series is the fact that the platform is expensive. And this has been heavily contested because people have talked about this. This is obviously one of the main issues, along with the issues with thermals, because that's one of the main concerns is that these chips will naturally run hot because they're intended to run at a max operating temperature of 95 degrees. And some people, when they hear that, they're like, 95 degrees on my CPU is, and this is 95 degrees Fahrenheit. This is 95 degrees Celsius, so it's a lot hotter. And it's like, yeah, that means that these suckers need a really good cooler. So as a result, if you need a much better cooler, you're going to need to spend more money on coolers. And it's like obviously people talk about the Noctua DH15, one of the most popular air coolers. That is the baseline, and even that is struggling. This is one of the problems with the CPUs right now, is that pricing is a bit rough if you're looking specifically at the newest generation of AMD. Intel, on the other hand, is definitely in a much more interesting spot, especially when you look at pricing and the platform cost, because while yes, you can use DDR5 RAM, you can also use DDR4 RAM. At the same time, you also have access to Z690 boards instead of having to go to the Z790 boards, because that's one of the benefits is obviously the 12th gen works on the Z690. It also works on the Z790. And as a result, the 13th gen is the same way since they're using the same chipset. And so you can use older generation motherboards and you essentially get the exact same performance because there's no issue. Here's the problem though, when we talk about Raptor Lake, is the fact that the thermal limit is non-existent. And so as a result, these things will hit max temperatures at over 100 degrees very easily, even with very premium liquid coolers at like 360 AIOs, or if, the massive 420s, which you're always going to be running the sucker at over 100 degrees. And yeah, it's not necessarily the best. While the performance is great, you will be thermal throttled a lot because let's be real here, you're going to need a really good cooler for these suckers. And as a result, it is going to make it a little bit more pricey. Now, in terms of current builds, when you're looking at just motherboard, CPU, RAM, yes, currently Raptor Lake is the better value. However, just because the new generation is out doesn't mean the old generation is bad. And this is where we start having this, it depends on, because if you're looking at value propositions, you could just go for the AMD 5000 series and the AM4 platform, or you could even go for the 12th gen Intel platform. Both are going to be much cheaper. Obviously, performance is not going to be the same, but you are going to get great performance either way. You are going to get multitasking out of them. You're going to get good performance in, more, how would you say, content creator, more, I'd say, work-related stuff. Also, gaming is going to be good because with the AM4 platform, you have the 5800X 3D. You also have, say, the the AMD 5950X. Same thing goes with the Intel side. You have the 12900K, the 12700K. You have the i5 12600K. But if you did want to focus more on the newer platforms, then yeah, you have options. And to be honest, a recent video came out and said, yeah, the best value for gaming and this more, man, I like how now my brain is literally farting about the word because it's like, ugh, productivity. There we go. Productivity task. Then the i5 13600K is a really good option, and it's probably the better value in comparison to say the 7600X or the 7700X on AMD side. Now, this is another thing we should also be mindful of is the longevity of a platform, because yes, the current platform for Raptor Lake will be dead after this year. So keep that in mind. AM5 in theory will have support for at least 2 more generations, but let's not keep your hopes up. Even though yes, they have a good track record about it, you know, we still have to wait and see with it. So that's something to be mindful of investing in the long run with AM5 is stuff like that. But now that we have the CPU stuff out of the way, so let's be mindful. We just talked about only CPUs. GPUs are where it gets interesting because, well, let's just talk about it. At the time of this recording, the only RTX 40 series out is the 4090, and that's about, you know, $1,600. That ain't necessarily cheap. Now, is it a behemoth of a graphic card? Yes. Performance is insane. It is currently, well, right now, the best graphic card on the market. Insane performance is definitely pushing the envelope with making 4K gaming at higher refresh rates more viable and things like that. However, it is also too expensive. Let's just be honest here. Now we can look at GPUs, say the 30 series or even the Radeon 6000 series, because those are the only other options on the market, because the RDNA 3 or the Radeon 7000 series are currently not on the market or available, since that's not happening until November 3rd. So be mindful of that. So things can change in this video. But at the time of this recording, yeah, you have some good deals with the older generation, and there's still really good performances. Like if you can get your hands on a 3090, you can get your hands on a 3090, like whether new, like around $1,000. You can get maybe used for like around $700, $800. You know, granted, some caveats there for like crypto mined cards and stuff like that. So be mindful of that. But the fact that you can buy a brand new 6900 XT for $630, now that is a good deal. And this is where it becomes interesting, because that card, yeah, like obviously you can do 4K gaming very easily, but the fact that it is a monster for 1440p gaming is, that is the big factor here, is the fact that 1440p, you're gonna get some great performance, and the fact that you can get it at a great price, $630 for a high-end GPU, I think that's a good value, especially with the longevity of the card. If you use it with the AMD 5000 series processors with resizable bar and things like that, yeah, I think you're gonna get great performance for a long period of time. Let's just be honest here, especially with that large buffer of VRAM of 16 gigabytes. Now, some people will say, why not just get the 3090? That is also true. 3090 Ti, I don't know about that. But right now, there is good value in graphics cards. Obviously, in the AMD side, there's more value in the sense of where they're priced at. I think they're more reasonably priced in comparison to, say, the 30 series, or like, say, the 3060, the 3070 are in an interesting spot in terms of brand new pricing, because being transparent here, you can get better performance on the 6000 series. That's just the truth, just being honest here. You're gonna get better performance. Now, the 40 series, this is where it also becomes another, it depends on, because we still haven't seen the 4080 though, the 16 gigabyte model. We're not talking about that 12 gigabyte model, because that ain't no 4080. That is clearly a 4070, 47 Ti. That is probably gonna get, you know, they're probably gonna rename it to the 4070 Ti and just, you know, hey guys, here's the 4070, even though it's just, they try to sell it to us as a 4080 for $900. So be mindful of that. But if you do want the best of the best, to be honest, the 4090 at its price isn't terrible. Yes, is it very expensive? Absolutely. But it is a monster of a graphics card, and right now it is the pinnacle of power. However, this is excluding RDNA 3 and what we've seen on AMD side, because I feel like RDNA 3 is going to provide a great value proposition, especially because of the thermal performance and power connectors, because here's another issue with the 4090 is the power connector situation. Thermals haven't been so bad. Like, based on what we're seeing, they, run pretty cool in terms of power draw. They're not terrible based on what, we talked about this a little bit before in another episode with the 4090, was surprisingly the power draw isn't terrible. Now, if you think about including it with, say, 13 gen Intel, that power draw is going to be way, way crazy, and you're going to need a beefy power supply for that. But the 4090, in terms of thermals and power draw, isn't terrible. The main issue is going to be its connectivity with that 16 pin. Actually, I think it's like a 12 pin connector, 16 pin. Yeah, the connector is essentially due to dog water, just being honest here. There's a lot of issues structurally with it that are starting to come out more and more. And so the Radeon team, primarily with RDNA 3, has come out and said they will not be using this technology because it's clearly shown that it's not ready. And that Intel, or in this case, NVIDIA, rushed it to market. So not necessarily a good look for these homies. But this is probably one of the major things. When we sum up all of this stuff, now that we talked about GPUs, we talked about the CPUs, what are we looking at in the space? And to be honest, building a PC for $1,000 is very possible right now, and a good PC. The fact that you can get a good processor, decent motherboard, good RAM, a good GPU for $1,000 is pretty nice. The fact that a $1,500 build, I can get you a lot of stuff for $1,500 nowadays. Because to be honest, you could probably fit in a 6900 in there, and that's some beefy performance for $1,500. It's one of those things where PC building right now in 2022 is very good. Yes, there are some concerns. People want prices to go down lower, which I think in time the 30 series will go down even more. I think the 6000 series will keep dropping, and it's going to be very interesting, to be honest with you guys. Once we see RDNA 3, once we see all the new technologies finally out, maybe we see a refresh to the 7000 series with their prices going down, because I think at their current price structure, they're just not that competitive with Intel. I think they need to see a fairly good price reduction, especially with how much they're asking for just being honest here. But with all of that said, I think we pretty much summed up that there are a lot of factors to consider when building a PC in 2022. Power draw, price to performance ratios, thermal performance, and just overall, what are you looking for? What platform do you want to invest in, in terms of graphics? What platform do you want to invest in terms of CPU? And in terms of like RAM and things like that, obviously going forward, I think the logical sense, if you're going full with the next generation, I think maybe waiting out on DDR5 to become cheaper, or just buying good kit now so that you can have it for a longer period of time. I think that's the most logical sense here. If you're going to go down the route, just build all brand new and just build, AM5, 13 gen Intel, or at least going forward with DDR5 and things like that. I think the logical sense is to invest in a premium DDR5 kit. Even though, yes, it is expensive. I'm going to be honest with you, it is expensive. You're spending over $200 on RAM. But in the long run, if you're going to hold on to that platform for a long period of time, I think it makes the most logical sense, personally. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, whether you agree with my opinions, whether you not agree with my opinions. To be honest, my voice is I can tell my voice is starting to, it's starting to kick the bucket, guys. So I thank you guys for at least being patient with me. I know it's just been a weird week. My voice has just been struggling a lot. It's not the best, guys. I'm just being honest with you. It's not the best. Obviously, my dog over here is kind of being a little pain in the butt, because he's not necessarily making it easier on me. But thank you guys for everything. Thank you guys for your love and your support. And thank you for being patient with me. I really do appreciate it, to be honest. I really, really do. If you guys enjoy the episode, leave a like, leave a dislike. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. But I will leave you guys with this. I hope you guys enjoy. And as always, don't do anything dumb, guys. Hope you guys have yourselves a wonderful week and weekend. I know this is Halloween weekend, so please be safe out there, guys. Don't do anything dumb. And try not to put on something, just being honest, don't put on a costume that's going to make you extremely controversial and edgy. Come on, guys. Be kind, be respectful of those around you, and don't do anything dumb. And I hope you guys have yourself a wonderful week and weekend, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.